The town of Black Hollow was the kind of place where nothing ever happened. And that was just the way the folks who lived there liked it. Nestled in a valley surrounded by dense, ancient woods, the town was a relic of a bygone era, where the past clung to the present like a stubborn stain. The adults went about their lives in a kind of sleepy rhythm, while the children roamed free, their imaginations running wild in the endless expanse of the forest. It was the summer of 1983 when the children found the stones. Tommy Hargrove, a wiry 12-year-old with a mop of unruly brown hair, was the first to see them. He'd been chasing his dog, Buster, through the woods when the mutt darted off the trail and into a thicket of underbrush. Tommy followed, cursing under his breath until he stumbled into a clearing he'd never seen before. The stones stood in a perfect circle, their surfaces smooth and dark, like polished obsidian. They were taller than Tommy, each one etched with strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when he looked at them too long. The air around the stones hummed faintly, a low, resonant sound that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "What the hell?" Tommy whispered, his voice swallowed by the oppressive silence of the woods. Buster whined, his tail tucked between his legs, and refused to go any closer. Tommy, however, felt an irresistible pull, as if the stones were calling to him. He reached out and touched one. The hum grew louder, vibrating through his bones, and then he heard it. A voice, soft and insidious, whispering in his ear. "Your father isn't really your father." Tommy jerked his hand away as if he'd been burned. The voice was gone, but the words lingered, echoing in his mind. He ran home, Buster at his heels, and didn't tell a soul what he'd heard. By the next day, Tommy had convinced himself it was his imagination. But when he brought his friends to the clearing, Maggie, the preacher's daughter, Jimmy, the class clown, and Sarah, the quiet girl who always seemed to know things she shouldn't, they heard the whispers too. Maggie's stone told her about the money her father had stolen from the church collection plate. Jimmy's revealed the truth about his older brother's disappearance 2 years ago, a truth so horrifying he vomited on the spot. Sarah's stone whispered something that made her go pale and refused to speak for the rest of the day. The children were terrified, but they couldn't stay away. The stones promised answers, secrets, power. They whispered of things that hadn't happened yet. A fire at the school, a car crash on Route 17, a storm that would level the town. The more they listened, the more they craved the knowledge. But the stones demanded payment. At first, it was small things. Tommy woke up one morning to find a lock of his hair had turned white. Maggie's reflection in the mirror began to move on its own, smiling at her when she wasn't. Jimmy's shadow no longer matched his movements, lagging a few seconds behind. Sarah's voice took on an eerie, echoing quality, as if she were speaking from the bottom of a well. The adults noticed, of course. How could they not? But by the time they started asking questions, it was too late. The stones were growing. What had once been a circle of 7 stones now numbered 12, their dark surfaces pulsing with a faint, malevolent light. The clearing had expanded, the trees around it withering and dying as if drained of life. The children spent more and more time there, their eyes hollow, their movements jerky and unnatural. They spoke in unison sometimes, their voices blending into a single, chilling monotone. Tommy's father, Sheriff Hargrove, was the first to confront them. He found Tommy in the clearing, standing in the center of the stones, his hands pressed against 2 of them. The hum was deafening now, a low, throbbing sound that made the sheriff's teeth ache. "Tommy!" he shouted, his voice barely audible over the noise. "What the hell are you doing out here?" Tommy turned to face him, and the sheriff recoiled. His son's eyes were black, devoid of any light, and his smile was too wide, too sharp. "They're hungry, Dad," Tommy said, his voice layered with a dozen others. "And they're almost ready." The stones weren't just growing, they were multiplying. New stones appeared overnight, spreading like a cancer through the woods. The adults tried to destroy them, but hammers shattered against their surfaces, and fire left them unscathed. The whispers grew louder, reaching beyond the children to the adults, tempting them with promises and threats. By the time the first stone appeared in the center of town, it was too late. The children had become something else, their bodies twisted and elongated, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They moved as one, herding the townsfolk toward the stones, which now pulsed with a sickly green light. The last thing Sheriff Hargrove saw before the stones claimed him was Tommy, standing at the center of the circle, his arms outstretched. "They're here," Tommy said, his voice echoing with the power of 1,000 whispers, "and they're never leaving." The town of Black Hollow is gone now, swallowed by the woods. The stones remain, their circle ever expanding, their whispers carried on the wind. If you listen closely, you can hear them calling to you, promising answers. But beware, the stones are always hungry, and they're almost ready. The horrors may end for now, but some nightmares never truly fade. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, make sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. There are more terrifying stories waiting for you in the dark. Click the bell icon unless you prefer to be caught off guard by the next nightmare. Sleep tight if you can.